Hello and welcome to the new season of the Drawn and Redrawn, the Making of India's Internal Boundaries podcast. This is a part of a larger India State Stories project that explores the evolution of India's political and administrative boundaries. This project is an undertaking by the Centre for Legislative Education and Research at Flame University in Pune. In this new season, we embark on a journey through the fascinating histories and narratives of each Indian state and union territories, exploring the pivotal events, influential personalities, and societal transformations that have shaped the subcontinent. In the 14th episode, let's learn about the fascinating story behind the formation of the southern state of Kerala. This episode is based on a corresponding article written by our team at India State Stories. These articles have been converted to audio conversations with the help of Google's Notebook LM. You can find the relevant article link in the show notes. Now, let's dive into the conversation.
Let's get into it. Today we are heading south to a state that I think for most of us just feels, it feels like the most cohesive, relumped place on the map, Kerala.
God's own country.
Exactly. When you think of Kerala, you have this very specific montage, right? The backwaters, the linguistic unity of Malayalam, those high literacy rates. It feels serene.
It does. It has a very effective brand, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That image of tranquility is just, it's incredibly powerful.
But of course, that's why we're here, because when I started digging into the sources for this, the reality of the political map is, it's messy.
Oh, it's very messy.
It's not this single ancient kingdom that just modernized. It looks more like a Frankenstein monster that was stitched together in a hurry from these really distinct pieces.
Frankenstein might be a little harsh, but stitched together is historically spot on. If you look at a map of South India before 1956, Kerala just isn't there.
Right.
Instead, you have three very different geopolitical entities. You have Travancore in the south, Cochin in the middle, and Malabar up north. And they all had really different personalities, different histories.
And the story of Kerala isn't just drawing a border around them. It's about the friction of forcing these three different political cultures to share a single house.
That's the perfect way to put it.
And I think that's what I really want to unpack today, because we assume, they all spoke Malayalam, so of course there should be a state. But looking at the timeline, especially around 1947, it seems like the whole thing nearly fell apart.
It absolutely did. And that was almost entirely because of the southern piece of the puzzle, Travancore.
Travancore is the wild card here.
Completely. I mean, at the time of independence, this wasn't some small vassal state. Travancore was one of the wealthiest, most powerful, most educated princely states in all of India.
Ruled by the Maharaja, but the real power was someone else.
Yes, the Maharaja was Sri Chithira Thirunal Balarama Varma, but the real power center, the architect of its policy, was the Dewan, the Prime Minister, Sir C.P. Ramaswamy Iyer.
Sir CVVP. He comes across as this brilliant, legalistic, but maybe a bit Machiavellian figure.
A strategist, for sure. He looked at the chaos of 1947, the British leaving, partition, and he saw an opening. On June 11, 1947, he makes a declaration that sends total shockwaves through Delhi.
He announced that Travancore would not join India.
And not just seeking autonomy within the Union, to be clear.
No, fully out.
Correct. A sovereign, independent nation state.
I had to pause when I read that. Sovereign, with a UN seat, passports, the whole thing. How on earth did he think he could survive as a separate country surrounded by a newly forming India? What was his leverage?
He wasn't banking on geography. He was banking on geology.
The beaches.
The sands, specifically. The beaches of Travancore were rich in monazite sands, which contained thorium.
And in 1947, with the atomic age dawning, that's a big deal.
It's a huge deal. Sir CP basically calculated that the Western powers, like the UK and the US, would be very interested in keeping Travancore independent and friendly to secure that thorium supply.
So it's resource diplomacy. He thought he could trade nuclear fuel for sovereignty.
Precisely. And he had a political vision to go with it. He proposed what he called an American-style federal model. He argued against Nehru's centralized vision for India.
A treaty between equals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Indian National Congress couldn't let that happen. It would set a terrible precedent.
The domino effect. If Travancore leaves, then Hyderabad, then Kashmir. The whole idea of India unravels.
That was the fear, which is where VP Menon steps in.
Secretary of the State's Ministry. And he's a Malayali himself, so this must have been personal.
It was. Menon flies down and offers a compromise. Just sign the instrument of accession on three subjects: defense, foreign affairs, and communications.
That sounds like a pretty good off-ramp. Give us the basics. Keep your kingdom.
But Sir CP flatly refused. He was committed. He thought the thorium gave him the upper hand. But he made a critical miscalculation. He was looking at London and Washington, but he ignored the streets of Travancore.
The people themselves.
Exactly. The people of Travancore, especially the strong communist movement and the local Congress cadre, they didn't want a monarchy. They wanted democracy.
And things were already volatile there.
Extremely. But the real tipping point was personal and violent.
The assassination attempt.
Yes. July 25th, 1947. Sir CP was at a concert. As he was leaving, an assailant broke through the crowd and stabbed him multiple times.
Ugh, horrific.
He survived, remarkably. But the message was crystal clear. It shattered his illusion of control.
You can't run a sovereign nation if your own people are trying to kill you.
It broke his resolve. He resigned. And the Maharaja, with his strong man gone, he had no choice. He signed the instrument of accession. Travancore was in.
Wow. Okay, so that's piece number 1, secured through blood and nuclear politics. Now, let's move up the coast to piece number 2, Cochin. My sense is that Cochin was kind of the good child in this drama.
Very much so. If Travancore was the rebellious teenager, Cochin was the cooperative honor student. The transition there was incredibly peaceful.
What the big difference? They're neighbors, same language.
It just came down to political culture. Cochin had a history of being more progressive. The ruler, Kerala Varmathapuran, had been experimenting with democratic reforms for decades. They already had a legislative council.
So the machinery for democracy was already there? They didn't need to be dragged into the union? They walked in?
They did. But Cochin is important for another reason. It was the incubator for the big idea, Aikya Keralam.
Which means unified Kerala.
Exactly. The dream of uniting all Malayali-speaking people under one roof. The leaders in Cochin were the loudest voices for this.
So that brings us to the awkward middle bit. You have Travancore and Cochin both in India. Everyone wants unity. Why not just merge them with Malabar right away?
Because Malabar was the third piece, and it was structurally different. Travancore and Cochin were princely states. Malabar was British India.
Oh, right. It was a district of the Madras Presidency.
Different legal and administrative species. You couldn't just glue them together, so they came up with a stopgap solution.
The half merger.
On July 1st, 1949, they created the state of Travancore Cochin. It was a bit of a clumsy marriage. They even split the capital's administrative in Thiruvananthapuram, judicial in Kochi.
A classic compromise. But Malabar is still left out. And this is where the story shifts from local politics to a kind of national anxiety in New Delhi.
Yes. You have to put yourself in the mindset of Nehru and Patel in the late 40s, early 50s.
The trauma of partition is still so fresh.
Exactly. India has just been torn apart on religious lines. There was a genuine, deep-seated fear that if you started redrawing internal borders based on language, you would just encourage more division, balkanization.
They thought a linguistic identity might lead to a national one.
That was the fear.
Yeah.
So commissions like the Dar Commission and the JVP Committee all said, not yet, it's too dangerous. They basically put Aikya Keralam on ice.
But the dam eventually had to break. What changed their minds?
The pressure became too great. Specifically, the tragedy in the Telugu-speaking regions. In 1952, an activist named Patti Sriramulu went on a hunger strike demanding a separate state of Andhra.
And he died.
He died, and it caused massive riots. The government realized that suppressing linguistic identity was actually more destabilizing than recognizing it. They had to pivot.
And so, in 1953, they set up the State's Reorganization Commission, the SRC.
The SRC, the architects of the modern Indian map. They finally took a hard look at the Kerala problem and recommended what everyone wanted.
Merging Malabar with Travancore Cochin.
Yes, but, and this is a really important detail, it wasn't just a clean copy-paste. It was a complex audit of the borders, a series of trades to make the lines as linguistically pure as possible.
Okay, so let's look at the trade-offs. What did the new state gain besides Malabar?
It gained a region called Kasaragod.
Which was part of what is now Karnataka.
Right, the South Kannada district. But the SRC found its cultural and linguistic gravity pulled south towards Malayalam. So they cut that Taluk from the north and pasted it onto the new Kerala.
So they gained territory in the north. What did they lose?
They lost the southern tail, the Kanyakumari district.
Which historically was the heartland of the old Travancore kingdom.
It was a huge part of their identity. But the demographics had shifted, and the majority of people there spoke Tamil. So, applying this strict linguistic logic, the SRC had to transfer those 5 taluks to Madras.
That must have been incredibly painful for the Travancore traditionalists.
It was losing a limb, but it was the price of a linguistic state. You can't have it both ways.
And there was one more strange piece to the puzzle, right? The islands.
Ah, yes, the Lakshadweep archipelago. The SRC saw that their trade and culture were completely tethered to the Malabar coast, so they recommended placing them under Kerala's administration.
So on November 1st, 1956, the map is finally drawn. Travancore, Cochin, Malabar, plus Kasaragod, minus Kanyakumari. The state of Kerala is born.
The state is born. But the story doesn't end with the map. The map is really just the prologue to what happens next politically.
The 1957 election. This part always blows my mind.
It should. The very first election held in this newly drawn state saw the Communist Party of India, led by EMS Namboodiripad, win a majority.
And we really need to frame this. This wasn't a revolution. This was a democracy.
It was a massive geopolitical shock. It was the first time in world history that a communist government had come to power through a free and fair ballot box. Washington panicked. Moscow was confused.
So why Kerala? Why did this specific merger create a red state?
It goes back to the ingredients. The Frankenstein merger created something new. Malabar had a history of violent peasant struggles against feudal landlords. It was radicalized.
Right.
And Travancore Cochin had high literacy and a politically conscious working class. When you merge them, you mix those chemicals. You combine the peasant anger of the north with the political organization of the south.
So the map literally created the politics. If Malabar had stayed in Madras, the communists might never have had the numbers.
I think that's 100% correct. This specific border allowed the EMS government to come in, and they immediately launched massive land reforms, education initiatives.
And those are the policies that directly lead to what we call the Kerala model today, right?
Yeah.
The high life expectancy, the literacy.
It is a direct lineage. You cannot understand Kerala's modern success in human development without understanding the political accident of 1957. And you can't understand 1957 without understanding the map drawn in 1956.
It really challenges that idea of inevitability. We look at the map today and just think, well, it had to be this way. But it really, really didn't.
Not at all. And that's the thought that sticks with me. I mean, what if Sir CP hadn't gone to that concert?
Rare.
What if the assassin had been stopped?
The ultimate what if.
If he had succeeded, does Kerala even exist? Do we have a wealthy, thorium-powered microstate on the tip of India, completely separate from the Malayali linguistic identity?
Like a Singapore or a Switzerland right there. Neutral, wealthy, and apart.
Exactly. It just shows that the map, as we see it, is a negotiation, a compromise between administrative lines and cultural souls. In Kerala, culture eventually won, but it was a very near miss. It came down to a few men in a room and one man with a knife.
It really makes you wonder how many other lines on our map are just one bad negotiation away from looking completely different.
History is often just a series of accidents that we later decide to call destiny.
That is a provocative thought to leave us with. Well, on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the making of Kerala. It's been a journey from nuclear beaches to ballot boxes. Thank you for walking us through it.
My pleasure. It's a fascinating story.
And to you, the listener, thank you for tuning in. We'll be back with another story of how the lines on the map of India came to be. See you in the next deep dive.